Hello everyone. Good morning, good evening, whatever time it is for you right now. Today we have a little something special planned because my favorite show ever is a little show called Breaking Bad. I firmly believe it is peak cinema. So I thought to myself, what's a way I could show that I love Breaking Bad? Well, that's it. That's easy. I'm gonna do a tier list for Breaking Bad, and for that, I am going to rank every Breaking Bad character by their complexity as a character. Also, this would be a good time to mention that there are spoilers in this video, so be wary. I highly recommend watching Breaking Bad. It's such a good show. I love it. Oh, I love Breaking Bad. Anyway, so there are some simple rules that I've set up. I will not be talking about characters the way they are presented in the spin-offs, like El Camino and Better Call Saul. I will be ranking characters based on, like, what they contribute to the plot, how deep their characters are, and, you know, just essentially how good or bad or whatever of a character they are. I will also just, you know, be sure to rank each character not just by how much screen time they have, but truly how much, like, influence they had on the plot. That being said, I don't have much else to explain, so let's just get after it. So I have organized these tiers on the tier list to share, like, you know, some of the more iconic characters from some of the more or less known characters. So of course we gotta start with our man Walter White.
My name is Walter Hartwell White.
I mean, that's just an automatic guess. He's the protagonist, so, you know, and he's by no means bland or dry or just your run-of-the-mill protag. He is by far one of the most complex characters I've ever seen in media. A man who went from being this somewhat stand-up guy, you know, got love from his family and friends, didn't have the most decent life, working 2 jobs. He did love doing what he did best, teaching chemistry, and it's clear that he loved his family and initially just wanted the best for them. So when he heard he had lung cancer, it kind of went all down the drain. And, you know, even in the first episode, you see just how low he's willing to go just to, you know, get the moolah. And, you know, throughout the series, it becomes less of a family matter and more of, like, a him matter. Because once he started seeing all the influence he had in the drug industry, among his, like, drug peers, among the people in his life, he started turning into quite a bit of an egomaniac. And it just gets progressively worse until he goes from egomaniac to straight up a terrible evil guy. And yeah, it's so interesting to watch just how low a man is willing to go just to feed whatever pride he has left in his 50, 52, 51-year-old man body. And, you know, another thing about him is that he tries to be all nice and all funny, even while he's, like, shifting into this egomaniac. But then there are times where he's become, like, super petty, just super controlling. Like, bro, give it a rest. I don't know. So yeah, Walter White gets an automatic S tier for just being one of the most complex protagonists I've ever seen. Next we got our boy Jesse Pinkman, also an automatic S tier.
This is my own private domicile and I will not be harassed! Bitch!
A little fun fact about Breaking Bad. Initially, Jesse Pinkman was going to be a very incredibly short-term character in which he would have died in the second episode. But fans liked him so much that they decided to keep him alive. And as a consequence, he became the show's personal punching bag. He once got a beat down from Hank, so that was nice. But other than that, he just got, like, tons of, like, abuse, both emotionally, mentally, definitely physically. And you learn a little more about his character bit by bit in the first season. You know, he had to leave his home life, or he got kicked out by his parents because, you know, of course he was a junkie, you know. They at least let him live in a house, but, you know, that was just pretty much it. And there's an episode where you see, like, you know, just how, you know, initially his parents are forgiving, and he tries to, like, you know, fit back into that family life, but then his brother ruins it for him. So, and instead of just arguing, he just accepts that this is how life is. You know, I'm only going to be seen as a druggie, I might as well just live that life. But then he meets Jane, like, post losing the van and his house, and Jane just changes everything for him. Like, you know, he's finally got this super awesome goth girlfriend. Who doesn't want that? For a little while, he's living the good life, with Walter White infiltrating every chance he gets. And that's why it's so upsetting to see him lose probably one of the best times of his life to Walter. It feels like every time Jesse's having a decent moment in his life, Walter's there to ruin it. And that's truly how toxic and upsetting their relationship is. It starts out as a man so desperate that he's willing to go, like, down the drain with someone who's been in that drain for so long. And now that this guy is trying to, like, climb out of that drain, Walter's just there to pull him back in. He's just this little nice guy, sweetheart, who's just caught up in the wrong industry, caught up in the wrong life, and then you got this bald-headed fool, like, I'm here to ruin everything for you, cause, I need meth. So while Walter White is one of my favorite protags ever, Jesse Pinkman has to be probably one of my favorite characters in fiction ever, purely just because he's just this guy who's going through it, man. He's going through so much. Alright, next on the list is Skyler White.
My name is Skyler White, yo.
So, I'm gonna shock you when I say this. You know, one of the most common running jokes in Breaking Bad is that Skyler White is this terrible character. She's this, you know, white woman who is always getting in the way of Walter and is just straight up just one of the worst characters in the series. And if you believe that, I firmly think you lack media literacy, because yes, Skyler White constantly gets in the way of Walter's ongoings in, like, several ways, not just, you know, out of self-preservation, but out of, like, selfish reason. But at the same time, you gotta remember, she's just a woman who's dealing with a man who's actively building up this dangerous ego. And of course, it's rubbing off on her. So my point is, I'm a Skyler White apologist, and I believe she gets, like, at least a no less. You know, she's just trying her best to, you know, not let her husband get arrested, but also not succumb to, like, all this pressure that is formulating. And yes, she does, you know, do probably really petty things like Walter White does. She cheats on him. She gives away her money to the same guy she cheated on him with. It's just a matter of, what does it really mean to try and survive a currently just very toxic marriage? And you can see her start to falter really badly in the later seasons. Like, she faked drowning herself. She, like, started screaming and crying and all this stuff. And at the end of the day, when it was all said and done, although she tried her best to salvage what she had with Walter, she couldn't take it anymore. And rightfully so, she tried to, or in self-defense, she gave her husband a few slices, and she nearly lost her baby. Like, bruh, that's tragic. We just do our best in these trying times, I guess. And yes, you can hate Skyler White for what she did, and contrary to Walter, but it's very important you remember, Walter's a protag, not a hero. Skyler is not any hero herself, but because she's actively doing things that harm Walter White's goals doesn't mean she's necessarily this terrible, awful character. She's just a character that is, you know, a character. Ooh, Alright, but that's pretty much all I gotta say about Skyler.
You're a pussy.
Moving on, we have Flynn, aka Walter White Jr. I'm gonna put him at a solid B. My reasoning being, you know, being part of the Walter family, the Walter White family. He's got his own complexities, you know, he has a disability that often affects how he's seen and how he operates. He has this very straining relationship with Walter after he starts acting up. And of course he doesn't know anything that's going on, but once he does find out, his whole world falls apart, and you can see that. His uncle died to Walter, he's losing his home to Walter, and his reputation has probably been ruined by Walter. And, you know, although Walter does love his son and does many things through him throughout the series to show that, it's more or less out of his egomania. So the question is, did he really love his son in those moments, or was he just trying to impress his son to show he's such a cool dad? And the reason I put him in B, not for breakfast, is because there was this one particular moment in the show that stuck with me. So Walter was going through like a major like hangover breakdown. He had to live in a separate house for a bit. Flynn came to check up on him or something, and he saw just how like beat down Walter was and all that, so he went out of his way to try and take care of him. And as they were trying to like reconcile a little, Flynn confessed that he preferred seeing this side of Walter that was all like run down and just all over the place because it felt real to him. That says so much about like what he's going through with his dad, seeing him like probably keeping all the sorts of these secrets, him like choosing to not fight his cancer, but then once he does, he starts like not being a real dad. So just to see him in this vulnerable state is more real to him, that he gets to see his dad again. And it's like, bro, why? Why would they do this to us? This is too deep for a character who eats breakfast all the time in the show. But yeah, that's why I think he deserves a solid B, because he probably said he said one of the most interesting things throughout the show that says so much about a character who gets so little screen time. Next is Holly White. There's not much to say about her. She's a baby. I'll give her a solid D, maybe? Solid C? I don't know. She is one of the main drives, even while she was still in the womb, because, if I remember correctly, Walter missed his own birthing of his daughter to his drug activities. So, and the pregnancy is generally one of the main drives, is why he decides to go into the business, so that he can support this baby. You know, the baby's born, and he tried to take care of it the best he can, and it's evident that he does love this baby, like very much. You know, of course, there came the final season in which he loved the baby so much he tried to kidnap it, and that wasn't cool. So he just gave it back, of course, because he knew that the baby deserved a better life than going on the run with everything that he's done. Yeah, I think I'll actually give Holly a solid C, because yes, she is a baby, can't do much, but she also was one of the major driving points for the series. Alright, next is Hank Schrader.
Bum, 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 bum. Bum, bum, bum. Bum, bum, bum.
I'm putting Hank at an S. I mean, yes, he's, you know, the first season he's presented as this funny, like, kind of asshole guy who, you know, he's DEA, a cop, no one likes cops, but, you know. Throughout the show, he comes more than this asshole character. He has, like, anxiety attacks, so it leads me to believe that he has, like, some sort of anxiety disorder, or some kind of, like, mental disorder that causes him to, like, make irrational decisions. Like, yes, he gets scared in elevators, but also he, like, leaves his gun in his car to go, like, confront someone in a bar. He just waltzes right into Jesse's house and gives him a beat down. Like, you know, he has issues, like a lot of issues that, you know, as a man in his day and age, he can't really handle, because, you know, he's in, like, a service industry where he, like, goes against crime, so he doesn't really have time to get help, and clearly as a very masculine guy, he's inclined to just cover it up. Season 3, I believe, where he got attacked by the Salamanca brothers and lost his ability to walk for a long time. And although he got the money to get walking therapy, there was just this while when he was very ignorant and depressed and didn't treat his own wife with any respect. And he went into a crisis over minerals. And, you know, of course anyone would go into some sort of crisis if they lost their ability to walk. But, you know, it was just kind of sad to see this guy kind of just go off the rails in that sort of sense. At least to me. And then finally, once he started to recover properly, he was just, you know, back to the guy he was meant to be, this guy who wanted justice more than anything, rather than to just go back to how life was. Walter is still out there, and he needs to take care of it, no matter what. And it's especially interesting when he, like, you know, took a shit that day instead of a piss and saw Walter for who he truly was. And you can see that chase for justice and probably the betrayal and anger go up tenfold. And it's even more upsetting that even though in the end he was going to win, he probably even won in his own book, he just lost instantly. And if not for, like, if not for his goal in his last moments, I'm sure he would have at least gotten spared. But that's the thing he always has: some goals, some anger issues. He's predictable, yet kind of unpredictable, because, you know, these issues get in the way of what was meant to be kind of a decent life for him. And yeah, again, Walter has ruined yet another decent life for someone. Yeah, I think he deserves an S tier for being a good antag, secondary character. Alright, next we got Marie Schrader.
What do I have to do to make you believe me?
Why'd you kill yourself, Walter?
She's another character that can only contribute so much to the plot as just like another, the antag to the antag, the wife of the antag. But I think she does deserve an A. So prior to, like, when season 2, season 1, I believe, we find out that Marie, despite being a very loving wife, is a kleptomaniac. Hank knows about this, but hasn't got enough time or hasn't set up anything for her to treat it. Even though she was meant to go to therapy sessions, he kind of skipped down on those just to continue being kleptomaniac. That's another thing that's interesting, because, like, all these Breaking Bad characters have issues, but it's rare to see a character that has an issue like this that's so diagnosable. But it's also so, like, interesting to see, like, why is she doing this? Is there, like, some reason she's coping, or is it that she's just, you know, a maniac? And, you know, maybe she's coping because she is scared that Hank might one day falter in his DEA work, or I don't know, she's just coping as a, like, stay-at-home wife. Who knows? But, you know, eventually she gets caught, and that's the time where she's like, you know what, that's enough, I quit kleptomania. And for that, you can see just how much she wants to perform and even loves Hank. And from there, you also see how much she's trying to be a good sister, to Skyler. You know, she starts seeing issues with her emotionally and mentally, you know, trying to be a good friend and trying to, like, take care of Skyler in like, what seems like a mental breakdown. And then she finds out what's been happening in the White family. And she instantly sides with her husband and just wants to see him get justice on them for putting him through so much pain and trouble and pretty much just the whole ordeal. She's caught up in it, but she's okay with being caught up in it because Hank is her super cool husband. Even then, like, during his time where he was disabled, she still cared about him enough to, like, you know, want to see him get better. She was frustrated with how he was being ignorant and downright just awful to her, but I think deep down she knew that this was just like a rough patch in their relationship. If Hank could go through the work to, you know, see that she could get out of her kleptomania, then surely she could return the favor and see Hank get out of this, like, depression and start to be able to walk again. So yeah, Marie, also a character who's framed as a white woman who only makes the plot worse, but I truly think she adds to the plot in the sense that she helps Hank get back on his feet, gives him something to fight for, and it's just distraught to see that you could see the distraught in her face too when she loses Hank, like, bruh. She's not an S tier, but she's definitely a pretty good character. Next here we have...
Burn in hell, you piece of shit.
Stephen Gomez, Hank's partner in the DEA. He's a memorable character as Hank's partner, but I don't know if he contributes much to the plot other than being his partner. Like, yes, he does care for Hank. Yes, he cares for the work they do. And yes, he also serves as Hank's best friend, who fights with him to the end, but we don't learn much about him outside his life with Hank. Yes, he's just there to serve as, you know, a good friend, but that's pretty much it to me. I can't think of much memorable moments with him other than him trying to help Hank. We give him a B, because he's been there since season 1, so of course, we gotta give him some credit. Next is Saul Goodman.
Hi, I'm Saul Goodman. Did you know that you have rights? The Constitution says you do.
Like I said, I'm not gonna account for everything we learned about Saul Goodman in his own spin-off show, but I will give him, I would say, an S right off the bat. His introductory episode, he is shown to be like this very hustles as a lawyer, you know. He's no nonsense, but also all the nonsense. He knows his stuff, because literally the first person that Jesse Pinkman goes to for help is him. So obviously, he must know his stuff about, like, getting drug dealers out of the gutter. You know, you can see all sorts of the sides of him. He can outwit people like Hank or, like, many other people. But he's also prone to succumbing to paranoia, the authority that some people have over him, like Gustavo and Walter in the later seasons. You can see that through, like, some things you notice, like the way he uses multiple cell phones, or just how he operates in such an undercover fashion, because he knows his work is dangerous, but he also knows he's, like, far too, like, he's getting good money, he's too deep in. So it highlights just a man who's both knows his stuff, but also he knows that he could get caught one day and it wouldn't be good. It's just strange to see a character that's knows so much yet can only do so little, because, you know, he's a lawyer. That's all he can do. We don't know how much experience this guy has outside of being a lawyer, but you could just tell he just knows his stuff and knows what to do when things go awry. And even then, Walter screws that up for him, because he just has to hold authority over everything, including Saul when he wants out. Yeah, another life ruined by Walter White. Fun. But yeah, I give him an S tier because he's important to the plot. important to the money laundering. He serves just a lot of, like, supporting roles for Walter in his drug stashing, drug making, all that jazz. Next here we have Tuco Salamanca.
Ah, tight, yeah!
Okay, first season villain, pretty crazy, pretty good. It's the family man outside of his, devious activities. I would give him a B, or actually an A. Yeah, I think an A, actually. Because you can see just how violent he is, how much influence he has over Walter and Jesse, to the point where he manages to kidnap them. He's smarter than he looks, too. Like, he obviously knows how to run his part of the cartel. He knows what's up when Walter and Jesse start acting awry. And I think a funny thing that happened within the first season is that, yes, he's insane, but also he gets scared by Walter. Like that one time he threw like that chemical compound on the ground, which is a testament to just how scary Walter can be sometimes, and how Tuco can recognize that. But you know, that was short-lived, and Tuco went back to like being like, man, y'all are nothing. That's all I gotta say about Tuco, really. He's a family man, but also probably one of the most deranged villains of Breaking Bad. That was cut short because he got found by Epic Hank. Yeah, decent villain. Next we got Badger. One of Jesse's friends. I would give him a D. Honestly, a D. Yes, he served as Jesse's friend, and when he was in need of like getting back with friends, but that was pretty much it. He was just kind of there to be a whatever influence on Jesse. Old friend, trying to hang out with Jesse, but didn't serve much over that. But he was a cool character. I did like him. Same with Skinny Pete. I did find it funny that he's actually talented. Like, he's really good on piano, but he chose to, like, help with drugs. But, that's all I gotta say about him, too. He's a friend with Jesse, friend of Badger, they're all their little friend group. Same with Combo, he was a friend of Jesse, but he did die. So I'm willing to put him in C tier because him dying was influential to Jesse and to the plot somewhat. His death was not in vain, and he got to show just how much Jesse cares about his friends. And I think that's pretty important to Jesse's character. Next we have the chick who Jesse lived with for a short while. I would say an F. Honestly, because she only appeared for a few episodes. She only gave so much influence to the plot, but, you know, she's a whatever character. Next we have, I believe this is Nodos? Yes, Nodos. So Nodos appeared in the first episode, kind of helped set things off. I believe he gets a C tier. He died. Of course, he died, and for the next few episodes, his dead body helped flesh out Walter and Jesse's situationship. So I think that's pretty good influence, because imagine your dead body helping two very different men try to operate together, and dysfunctionally doing that so. But yeah. And then there's Domino. I think he gets a B tier for he seemed like an anti, and yes, although he was an anti for a different reason because he worked for the DEA secretly, and his death caused by Walter and that influenced the DEA. It kind of caused this like this sort of like chain reaction where Walter felt like more devious and built a little more ego from killing someone and getting out of like that situation where he could have potentially been killed by Domino. And, you know, of course the DA was affected by Domino's death, so they took the case of the current meth rising and potentially new drug dealers on the street a little more seriously. Yeah, I think his character was pretty important to the first season. Next we got Bogdan. Bogdan. F. He was just there with his car wash. Walter hated him. He eventually gave up the car wash. It's whatever. Not very important character, other than his big ass eyebrows. Next we have Jesse's parents. I'm struggling between a C or D because, yes, Jesse's parents, they obviously care for Jesse somewhat until they lose faith that he's trying to recover as a person from drugs, and they even evict him from their other house, but, you know, of course, they give up when Saul manages to get it back from them. But they're not very important characters. We never see him again after Jesse gets his house back, so I'm actually gonna put them in D. Next is this fella. What was this thing?
20 minutes later.
Old Joe. I remember Old Joe for being helpful to Walter and Jesse. You know, he helped destroy the original van. He helped get the magnets working for their little project to get rid of the evidence on the DA's computer.
Yeah, bitch! Magnets!
He didn't show up much, but he did help, and I think for that he deserves a C. Mike Ehrmantraut.
You are not the guy. You're not capable of being the guy. I had a guy, but now I don't. You are not the guy.
Wow, Mike Ehrmantraut. I think he deserves an S, purely because, like, you know, in his introduction, it's fairly clear to see, despite being an old guy, he has a lot of experience, and he still does, you know, he's still in the work line of, you know, whatever he does, like, you know, helps clear up bodies, so he's a janitor, so somewhat of a hitman, you know, just, like, does all the dirty work for, like, you know, cartel or drug manufacturers. And outside of that, he's also clearly a family man who loves his granddaughter, which is another reason why Walter is so bad and evil of a character, because in his pettiness, he ruined yet another life, specifically Ehrmantraut's over here. Yes, he served a lot to the plot as just trying to get by and make the money for his granddaughter. Obviously cares deeply for his job, helping and performing well. It's just yet another upsetting moment where Walter just straight up shoots him, even though he could have gotten other information from someone else just to get back at Mike for yelling at him and giving him what he deserves to hear, that he's an egomaniac and, you know, he just sucks. He sucks. But at the very end, he at least got one thing that was nearly taken away from him, which was to die in peace. After all you've been through, that's the only thing you can really salvage, is just to die in peace at a lovely little river. Very interesting character, very supportive character, very funny character, somewhat. You know, just an old guy who's super badass. And that's also why I think his granddaughter deserves better than an F. She serves much to Mike, but not much to Walter. Next we have Jane Margolis.
I don't make it my business what you do. So long as you don't do it here.
A tier, probably even S tier, oh my god. Right off the bat, you can see just how deep her character is, in the sense that she's just doing her job for her dad. She used to be a heroin addict, but is trying to get better. But when Jesse comes into her life, she starts being a bit more reckless, to the point where she, you know, relapses on heroin just for his sake. She ends up falling in love with him, and being this almost bright light to Jesse he needed in this time of, like, he's, you know, just a junkie, he got evicted, he's trying to get back on his feet, thanks to Walter and his parents, and, you know, just being in this industry, and which is why it was pretty upsetting when she died, because her death hit Jesse like a freaking truck. It took like a whole season for him to accept that Jane's death was no one's fault except Walter's, because as he did a petty action to Jesse, he watched Jane die. He didn't consider how much Jane's death would affect Jesse. He only saw her as, like, someone getting in the way of his goals, and yeah, it was pretty detrimental to Jesse, and he only managed to see that after all that happened. And I don't even know if he truly did feel super sympathetic towards Jesse. I'm sure he felt bad, but like, I don't know if he knew the weight of his decision to not save Jane. But yeah, her influence on Jesse was pretty bad, and just another reason why Jesse's gone through the ringer so much, losing someone that he felt was the love of his life. Because, you know, goth GF, who doesn't want an amazing goth GF? Her death affecting another person, Donald Margolis, is another thing. I think it gets a B or an A, B or A, because yes, he only served like a minor role as this guy who was like, my daughter will not date you, a junkie. My daughter is susceptible to becoming a junkie again. She did become a junkie again because of you, but once she dies, he just, you know, just goes in this mental space where he's no longer even really here. As exemplified by the fact he was the main factor in a horrible plane crash, and that became a very prevalent plot point throughout a fair bit of the show. Essentially, the super traumatic event happened right over Albuquerque thanks to him, and now he has to live with that as well as the rest of Albuquerque. And that's another thing Walter White has to live with. He ruined someone's life and probably was the reason, the main, like, butterfly effect behind ruining a bunch of other lives. So it's yet another testament to just how awful Walter is to people he gets petty over. How easy it is just to ruin so many lives in one decision. Not a very super deep character, but served as a big point in the plot to Breaking Bad. Next we have Hector Salamanca. I would give him a B, or an A, or a B, I don't know. Okay, to rule it out, Hector is the grandfather, probably great-grandfather of some of the Salamancas. Can't do much because he had a stroke, but he does offer some assistance to Walter to make sure he doesn't get caught. But when it comes to like what he's done, it's kind of like a weird mesh of like he caused some of Gustavo's trauma, so thus Gustavo got back at him by killing every remaining member of his bloodline, and I'm sure that's not a good thing to hear. So he gets some help from Walter to get back at Gus, even knowing that he was gonna die, which I guess didn't really matter to him because every member of his bloodline was gone, so what's the point of living? Okay, I'll put him in B. Yeah, he's not super complex outside the fact that he probably truly did care for his bloodline and his descendants, and now they were all gone, so he had nothing else to live for. But he would use his last moments to cause Gus a bit of like fear before he went out for real. And that leads me to the Salamanca brothers, Marco and Leonel Salamanca. I'm gonna put them at A because, you know, first things first, they're assigned to kill Walter White. They try to, but they pretty much fail because Hank gets them first. Yes, they did manage to paralyze Hank, which caused his big depression breakdown, so that adds value to their influence on the characters and the plot. And also, they cause Walter White some distress because although Hank managed to kill one of them, another stayed alive. He nearly got away with it, where he could tell like DA or the hospital what had happened or who they were after, but you know, of course, Walter made sure that did not happen. So, just another life that Walter kind of ruined. And actually, in that sense, he did kind of add to ruining Hector's life, even though, you know, they ended up working together briefly. He still pretty much added to the fact that he killed off 2 remaining members of his bloodline. So that's no good. Not super deep outside of like, you know, their childhoods and how they were connected as 2 killer brothers. They do add like influence to the characters, and I think that's very important. Gustavo Fring.
I will kill your wife. I will kill your son. I will kill your infant daughter.
S tier immediately. One of the most complex and devious and threatening villains I've ever seen in the media. Now, he started out as this guy who just wanted to live a life outside of his home country, do what he did best, which was peddle meth while maintaining a good chicken joint. And he immediately lost his partner over here, which I'm going to put in A tier, or B tier, because his partner's death caused him to recuperate all the trauma and revenge he wanted. That made him like the sort of almost emotionless kind of evil. Something I like to point out, he's a humanitarian man. He gives out to charity. He talks to the DEA and the public very often. He cares about his employees at Los Pollos Hermanos. He's a good employer and a good boss, outside of his meth production, of course. And that's another interesting thing, that he's just, he seems like your average Joe who's a good man, but he's actually just this, almost an emperor of this part of this cartel. You could see that how much he pretty much despises Walter throughout his time as a villain, but he sees potential in Jesse, which is why he wants to take him away from Walter. I'll give him that much. He sees that Walter's not a good influence on Jesse's potential, even though he is also trying to use Jesse for meth production. I think he also contributes as, probably one of the scariest moments in the entirety of Breaking Bad, killing Victor, just to show just how much he is a neat, orderly man, yet he doesn't mind just being absolutely brutal. And that's how you just see him throughout his reign of villainy. Neat, orderly, upstanding, tries to put on this mask, when really he's just trying to keep it together and not reveal this terrible dark side of him that's developed through his trauma and power and such. Which is also why I think it's pretty both gratifying and interesting that at the end of the day he managed to get his revenge from the Salamancas and the people who took away his partner, and it just shows how smart he is. He knows his stuff, and it was all taken away from him because Walter just is that kind of guy who ruins everyone's lives. S tier immediately, because he's one of the best villains in TV probably, but in Breaking Bad in general. Next here we have Don Eladio. I'm going to put him at C, because yes, he was the main servant of Gustavo's trauma that caused him to become the man he is, but that's pretty much it. Yeah, he's just there. Tyrus also is C. Obviously a good employee to Gustavo. Was the last person he probably saw in that room besides Hector. He was just a real one to the end. So that's all I gotta say about him. Victor, I'm gonna give him a B, probably because he added some sort of mental trauma to both Jesse and Walter, but also because he was killed as a prime example as to how dangerous Gus is. So his death definitely wasn't in vain in terms of developing Gus's reputation. Next we have Huell.
This is Huell. Huell, you happy?
Reasonably.
I like Huell. Huell is just a guy, silly guy. He serves as much as another guy who does dirty work for Walter and Saul and everyone who is involved in the industry. He does serve as the one of the factors that leads to Walter's downfall, if only briefly, and I think that makes him pretty important. Actually, I'll put both him and Kuby in B. They work together well, and they do a lot for putting progression on Walter's movements to launder and produce and just generally help him continue his business as a meth producer. Next is Gale Boetticher. I'm going to put him at B, probably either B or I'm going to put him at A. One, he helped Walter a lot in understanding the meth lab that he was assigned by Gustavo. He was also probably one of Gustavo's most loyal employees. He really did love what he was doing, despite obviously committing a crime. It's rare to see someone so passionate about committing a crime, even if it's just because he loves science and chemistry. Which is why it was also kind of disheartening when he died. Because, yes, Walter had killed many people before, but this was the first person Jesse had to kill. And I'm sure for that, Jesse was incredibly traumatized, taking another man's life. You could see it through the rest of the season, just how terrible and dead inside he felt, because he had to kill someone just for this guy who was barely doing anything for him except being his meth lab partner. Also, he accidentally caused Walter's downfall as well, because he gave him a book filled with poems that Hank found and was like, yo, Walter is Heisenberg, or yeah. So Gale serves a lot of influence to the characters in the plot, more than he probably meant to, and I think for that he deserves an A tier. Next we got Andrea. I'm also gonna put her in A because, again, she was Jesse Pinkman's partner for a long while. He truly did love her, almost like he loved Jane. He felt at home with her. He felt like a decent man with her, especially with Brock, who I will give a B, because Brock getting poisoned by Walter was something that made him incredibly angry and, emotional. So you could see the influence that these two characters had on him, which is why it was also tragic to see Jesse yet again lose someone he truly loved in front of him because of Walter's influence. Man, my man Jesse cannot catch a break, bro. And yeah, I think Andrea was just very important, as well as Brock, to trying to pull Jesse out of his hidey hole of depression and being nothing more than this meth producer for Walter, only to have it stripped away from him yet again because of him. And that is truly tragic. Alright, next we have Lydia. So people often say, we point out the woman of Breaking Bad, oh, they are either peak or they're just evil and awful. But I think Lydia is a mixture of that peak and awfulness. Cause, yes, she's careful. She knows her way around the industry quite a bit, yet she's a coward. She is so hyper nervous about participating in this industry despite having a lot of power. And which is understandable because, she has a decent life with her daughter. I think that's another influential part of the show that shows the deepness of a character that usually is only seen with one or two traits. How she requests that Mike does not kill her in front of her daughter because she doesn't want her to think that she went away or abandoned her. And that part of her shows that how much she does love the people in her life, but also doesn't care for the people in the industry. So much weird complexity to her. And at the end, she kind of got what she deserved, being this coward who caused more harm than she meant to, or probably meant to, I don't know. It was still kind of upsetting knowing that she would die in such a way, but at least her daughter would know what happened, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, Lydia is just pretty interesting as a secondary antag / secondary character in the way that she helps Todd, but also helps Walter, but also actually kind of works between the two against each other. I don't know. Speaking of Todd, I'm gonna put him in A tier, mainly because, he served as, the final season's main antag, in the sense that he caused a lot of basically the downfall of Walter White and Jesse, even Hank, because his main influence is what got Hank killed, what caused Walter to have to run away because he was probably going to get caught or killed. He kidnapped Jesse, killed Andrea in front of him, made him cook meth for almost a year, killed a kid in front of Jesse, which traumatized him even further. He's just relentless and terrible as a villain. He acts like, this oblivious guy, but who doesn't know what he's doing is absolutely wrong, but he is doing absolutely wrong things. which is why I think he deserves the A tier for being a pretty good villain, because yes, people who know exactly what they're doing and have so much power are scary, but then there are people who have pretty much a little bit of power in the industry, but can do so much to hurt people with that power. Jack Welker also gets a B, because yes, he was the one who caused the death of Hank. His people had caused like a mass shanking thing, he caused a bunch of deaths among prison inmates that knew about Heisenberg or whatever, and that alone shows just how scary he is, how many links he has in the industry. Yeah, he's almost as relentless as Todd, understandably so because they're relatives. He probably didn't have the best influence on him, which is why he's so oblivious to how evil he is. Yeah, I think he deserves a B for his influence on the plot and the characters and the deaths he's caused in the final season. Alright, next we have George. George over here. George served as the head of the DEA, kind of had some influence on Hank, and I would give him a solid C. Being the leader of the DEA, he did have some say in what Hank was doing. That has enough influence on Hank's character, or the plot, I believe. Alright, next we have Clovis. Clovis didn't do much as far as I'm aware. He just influenced Jesse's ability to hold the van. I don't know, he just only helped with the RV, and I think that at least gives him a D or a C. I'm gonna put him in D. He didn't do much except do work on the RV. That's pretty much it. Alright, next we have Elliot Schwartz. Personally, I'd say he had a very big influence on the plot in terms of why Walter went down the path he went. He showcased Walter's sense of pride. He helped Elliot start this company, Gray Matter, but Elliot got all the credit, and Walter had to end up going to a lower job as a chemistry teacher. Although he offers help to, pay for his cancer treatment, pay for anything his family needed, Walter's pride began to swell, and he was like, nah man, I'm chill. He seems like a decent fella, but Walter takes that in vain to feed his ego and say, I'm the man here, I can do it myself. I'd give him a B for that, because he was a big driving force in Walter's background character and foreground character. I suppose next we'll cover Tortuga. I don't remember what Tortuga did. I remember his head was on a turtle, I think. That's pretty much it. I put him in F, because I don't remember anything he did. Next is this kid who died. C, because he died in front of Jesse and caused a bunch of tension between him and Todd. So I think that works out for their influence on the plot and their characters, but poor kid. Next we have Ted Beneke. I'm gonna put him B for obvious reasons. His influence is that Skyler cheated on Walter with him, and because of his fraud dealio, Skyler was influenced to give a bunch of money to him as well. So his influence was to cause strain between Skyler and Walter, and also show how crazy Walter is. Because he got super angry and started causing property damage on Ted's office. At the end, Ted kind of got what he deserved, because he did an oopsie doopsie and slipped. Yeah, I think for that he deserves a B, because he caused a lot of influence on Skyler, which backfired on her personally, because it caused her some kind of mental damage. And shows just how bad it can be when you get involved with anything that has to do with Walter's industry. And I'm just gonna say it out front, I don't remember who any of these characters are, these last four, and I don't particularly want to just put them in F because I don't remember them, but I don't have anything to say about them. If I don't remember them, how can I check them through influence or complexity? So I'm just gonna throw them in F, because, yeah, I'm sorry guys, I don't remember you. And I think that ought to do it. So here's the final tier list. We have covered pretty much all the ground we can, besides the last four characters. Walter, Jesse, Skyler, Hank, Saul Goodman, Mike, and Gus proved to be some of the most complex characters in Breaking Bad, if not throughout a bunch of TV shows. All these characters serve their roles in some way or another. cause influence, have complexity, progress the plot, and, you know, they're all special in their own little way. And they all add to the specialty that is Breaking Bad. And that is my TED Talk. This was fun to do. If y'all liked watching this, I would certainly like to do more. Just recommend me, like, you know, if you want to see another show or movie or whatever get ranked, or just, you know, anything that's general, I would happily do it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to leave a like, a little sub, if you will. I hope y'all have a good day and a good night, and I'll catch y'all later. Bye bye!